Tonight's episode of the 31st Lap Podcast is brought to you by DirtTrackDigest.com. If it's on dirt, it's on Dirt Track Digest.
This is the 31st Lap Podcast, recorded live in the studios of FingerLakes1.com in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now, your host, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening, welcome to the 31st Lap, episode number 183, if you can believe it, closing up on episode number 200. Got to get Mike Mallet back in here at some point. Going to be hanging out tonight with Steve Pesarek, but first we got to talk a little bit about Radio Hill Raceway. We're going to be talking a little bit about Napa here in a few minutes as well. Napa, and now Ryan Ostrander over at Catskill Fabrication and Performance in Unadilla has signed on to be a primary sponsor of the Mud Boss race, which I took my first outing in over in the 20th anniversary event promoted by Tim Haskins at Radio Hill, the RC track down in Dundee. And it turns out I am not very good at running an RC car. I tore the sides off of the car, but all the same, it was a ton of fun. I was trading some messages with some of the Guerreri clan. They've all got cars, and Bruce Ridley did a ton of work in terms of helping get that car together. Had a good feel to those Mud Bosses, and looks like those Mud Bosses, they basically look like dirt modifieds. Just sent a body off today, actually, to a guy named John Forgy out in Massachusetts. They got a good solid field out there, and we're hoping to see maybe John come out for that 200 lapper that we have the Battle of the Bosses coming up on the 24th of February down there at Radio Hill. And again, Ryan Ostrander with Catskill Fab and Performance and Napa both signing on, now joining Brewerton Speedway and Fulton Speedway as title sponsors of that event. Saw Matt Shepard getting ready to unleash his fury as an independent operation this year, coming up in the dirt modified, so it didn't take long for him to land on his feet. And we've seen him change cars a number of different times, and he always finds the same success. So we wish him the best of luck as he's just getting back home from his wedding down there in Cancun. So without further ado, what we'll do is we'll jump over here and say hi to our guest for the evening, Steve Pesarek. Man, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So you, as I understand, are going to be taking on a new challenge this year, jumping into the late models for the first time.
Well, that's the way we're leaning right now. Haven't seen any rules in print, but when that comes to be, and then we've got to get rid of some of the equipment from the years past, make room for the new stuff. But that's kind of our plan, is the new late model class.
And you're coming off a very successful season over there at Canandaigua Motorsports Park, picking up 7 wins over there. Why the change? I mean, it looks like you're pretty much hitting your stride at this point with your return to racing after you were out of it for close to 16 years. Jumping back into it, looked like everything was going pretty smooth, and now we're going the way of the late model. Well,
the main reason is they haven't eliminated the class, but they have in a sense that every position is going to pay the same.
Mm-hmm.
$50 is our understanding, whether you finish first, fourth, seventh. So that kind of took the shine off of what we were doing.
Sure.
And probably the reason for that, there was a lot of, not on my part, we just showed up and raced, did the best we could, but some of the other competitors were upset, complaining to the promoter. It was probably a headache for him.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand that, so this is probably his way to make it go away. But the rules thing, we just read the rules.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't our option. Several years ago, some of the people involved with the class to open up the rules to other tracks, try to get more competitors. I didn't think it would work, but we just sat back, waited, took a good look at the rule book 2 years ago, and talked it over with the car owner. Thought we'd buy a certain kind of a car. Took me a year to learn how to drive it, but once we got it figured out, end result was a pretty fast race car, and competition didn't like it.
It didn't take long for you to get back to where you had left off. I mean, winning the first dirt tour title for the pro stocks, and even at that point it was the street stocks back in the mid-90s. You got into the division in 1987, but then you chose to get out of racing as a whole like 1998, and you stayed away from it, which we see that more often than not. Once you decide to get out of it, you get out of it and you stay out of it. And decade and a half later, back in the car.
Well, that was the plan.
That was the plan.
Thought I was done, yeah. But good friend of mine, Bill Twist from Waterloo,
Mm-hmm.
he was a drag racer. He and his wife, Barb. They messed around with the drag cars. And
I have a lot of friends that come in from out of town.
Yes.
That just as we drive by the shop, they see the Pontiac sitting in the back corner, like, what's that over there? They certainly draw some attention still.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's the escape. When they have enough of scraping mud off the cars and a little bit of the crashing that goes on, they can go back to the drag car. All you got to do is dust them off.
Right.
But thought he wanted to try stock car racing. And, I told him, I said, there's going to be good nights and bad nights, a lot of headaches, pressure. But he wanted to try it. He asked me if I could still drive, and I said, well, yeah, of course you can drive. Anybody that's ever driven. How good are you? That's the question.
Right.
I didn't know.
Right.
And then wear glasses back then.
Sure.
17 years older, So already retired 7 years, so got myself in pretty good shape. So we give it a try. Took us a little while to get back in the swing, but we're doing okay. We're behind a little bit compared to the younger guys, but we're good enough some nights.
You came up through with a heck of a pro stock class in that mid-'90s when that thing was really, really starting to churn out some remarkable talents. When you left it from where you are, when you got back into it, what was the biggest change that you'd seen? I mean, racing certainly evolves year to year, as you saw when you were in the middle of it.
The biggest change was probably the expense.
Yeah.
To field a top quality car. Back in the mid-'90s, my total budget was $2,300 for a year. And in 95, I broke even, believe it or not. Friday nights at Paradise, we'd win. We'd get $100+ Saturday night at Canandaigua, we'd get $30. But if you don't break anything, you could run the tires 5 or 6, 7 weeks maybe, take care of things. We broke even. So, but that probably unheard of. Never happened again. But
no.
Now the expense is so great, and the purses haven't kept up with the expense. But this is especially true with the open wheel cars, the faster cars, the sprint cars. We're at the bottom of the rung on it is expense, reward type thing.
Right.
But we did pretty well with our car. I'm of the mindset. I'm a cheap Charlie guy. If we can get away with some used stuff as opposed to new, we use it.
Right.
And we've been fairly successful. But of course, the faster top of the line cars can't do that. But so we're trying to lose as little as possible. That's our theory.
That's
lose as little as possible. You're never going to win, but
that's fair.
So far it's worked pretty well. We're happy.
Lose as little as possible.
Yeah, we haven't lost the house, the garage, the car, or anything yet. The kids are still around.
Right.
So we're surviving.
How about the reaction times? I mean, being like you said, 17 years older, were the reaction times different?
Initially it was, but it didn't take long. I probably lost a little bit. How long is a half a second or a quarter of a second?
Half a second.
Depth perception was the big thing, and the darkness.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't wear glasses back then. The glasses got me back to 20/20, but it's still a little bit different when you get older. You need more light than when you're younger.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be a little careful on judgment. Dark areas of the track. I err on the safe side as opposed to taking chances.
Did you take all the lights out of the dash lights so that you can see the lights?
Yeah,
from the track
one of them doesn't work. The red lights work.
Yeah, that's all you got to worry about.
But it saved the motor this year, but it lost me the points championship. So we're leading a race late in the year.
Right.
Tied for points at that particular night, dead even, and leading about halfway through the race and had a caution. So I'm riding around in the front row waiting. I happened to look down, the red light come on. I look down, the oil pressure's on 0.
Not good.
Nope. Saved the motor, though. It's cheaper to rebuild them than to start over. So we gave it away that night, and that was it. But
that's not the same motor that would be going in the late model, though, right?
No. The late model motor is a crate situation, similar to what the sportsman cars run.
So theoretically, you could have let that one come apart, right?
Yeah, but we had 2 more races to do, which we did. But anyways, we had a fine year with that motor. As a matter of fact, it's been rebuilt since.
Yeah.
And it's a fine piece, so someone that can use an open motor, more than welcome to take a shot at it.
Is that among the pieces that are for sale?
That's among the pieces that are for sale, yeah. It can't be used in the late model class. Those motors are sealed, and they're only able to be taken apart by an authorized engine rebuilder. So, that'll be a totally different thing. Just keep the oil clean, keep the air clean as you can, and treat them nice, just like one of your family.
And this isn't the same crate motor that goes in the sportsman class. They run the 602. This is the 604, which is about 100 more horsepower. And a little bit different internals, a little bit different
better pieces.
Intake and head combination on those as well. But in terms of their durability, it's pretty much parallel.
It is. You know, the talk is if you take care of them, you can run them 2 years. And then they're ready for a rebuild, and you should be able to run them a couple of more years. So it's a pretty reliable piece. There aren't many around here, only in the late model class that's been started the last couple of years that run at Fulton a little bit, Brewerton. Northern and central New York, they've been running them, and they're trying to open up here to western New York, central and western. I understand Batavia's going to run them this year. New class for Batavia. Freedom Raceway off to the west.
Yep.
So Canandaigua, that's probably a good thing to get in there. So Friday night, guys will have a chance to race Saturday, drive into Canandaigua, and if we want to race on a Friday or a Sunday somewhere, there's options there. So, but the majority of those cars are 604 crates, the more powerful ones. You can run the 602 that our sportsman guys use, but take 150 pounds off the car. And they claim it's close, but I'm not sure. So
there's no replacement for displacement, right?
No, and every time you got to carry excess baggage. Just ask older people.
Yeah.
Compared to younger people. 30 years and 30 pounds heavier. That's why you got sore knees, right?
How did you get into the sport? I mean, you've been around motors and stuff forever, but at the same time, you didn't get into racing until 87, so that puts you somewhere around 40, 43?
41, yeah.
Feels like a late start.
It is. When I was 5 years old, I lived on a farm in Lyons. Next door neighbor, Giuliano's Auto Parts, had a race car. We ran a dirt road, and up and down the road they'd come, put a little time on the motor after they rebuild them, and every night after I'd finish my chores, ride my bike up there. And I was the garage guy. Get this, get that, get the broom. So that got my interest right there.
Right.
That race car was something, and I never forgot it. And my parents weren't real fond of that thing. So I just kind of kept it under the radar with them, but little did they know how much I really liked the thing. And, way later, I was a fan. I started going to the races back in the late 50s, at the old Waterloo Speedway and Spencer Speedway. He'd run the same car both nights.
Right.
So I always followed it. When I got old enough to drive, I traveled all around to watch the races. Over the years, I always thought I could do it.
Yeah.
Wanted to try it, but I says, I can do that. Of course, a lot of people say that. But you don't know you can or you can't until you try it.
Sure.
But I wasn't going to put myself deep in debt or create a bad family situation, so I just kind of let it go, silently suffered, did my family. In 86, Charlie Donk was a racer at Canandaigua. And he was moving from the street stocks to the open wheel cars. And told me one night, and he knew I wanted to try it, but didn't have much money. So he had built a car for his crew guys. They wanted to try racing. They ran it a couple of weeks at Spencer, and someone stuck it in the fence. It was a mess. So he made a deal with me. He says, I'll sell you this car really cheap. He had spare frame for it, and I forget what it was, a few $100 maybe. That's about all I had.
Right.
But I had a welder, and I had about 400 hours over the winter every night in the garage. I put the thing back together, and spring of 87, off to Canandaigua we went. And that was the beginning. And first night out, I think it was a 6 or an 8 lap race. I had to start 24th. I come zipping up through there pretty good, and the oil line for the transmission cooler come apart. 1 clamp instead of 2. I didn't know. Pumped all the oil out of it. So we took care of that. The next week, started 20-something, won it. Third week, started 20-something, won it. And that was it. We were off.
So you won 2 of your first 3 starts.
Yeah. And the car was in one piece.
Right.
And I just thought to myself, there's got to be something more to it than this. But there wasn't. I just had a knack for it.
Just a matter.
Fortunate, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
So and at that time they were still running the multiple divisions of the street stocks at Canandaigua. Yes. It wasn't until the late '90s where you guys really started to get some attention from the tour as a whole, and the Super Dirt Car Series was started for that division.
Right. Well, almost every dirt track in New York State had car counts way more than what the feature would start.
Sure.
I mean, there was 30, 35, 40 cars at Canandaigua.
Different atmosphere then.
Oh, sure.
Completely
Sure. I mean, you had to run
world.
and keep it in one piece, or you were going to go on the trailer. You weren't going to run the feature.
Mm-hmm.
You know, money wasn't the question. It's getting in the main event.
Right.
You know, and all for that $2 trophy at the end of the night. You know, the work didn't matter. The money didn't matter. You know, for that 8 or 10 or 15 minutes, however long it took, it's all for that plastic trophy, you know.
Right.
So, but every track was overloaded with cars. So, and Mr. Donnelly, the head of dirt, he was smart. He saw that, the car counts. And, of course, you take every car and multiply it by X number of people, by X number of dollars. And why not? You got the other 3 divisions that are
Right.
shooting for that thing. So he made it a 4th one. And I was fortunate enough to come away with the big trophy on that one, 95.
And then rules started to change. It started to get more and more expensive every year. Things started to become a little bit more professional, a little bit more high end, and they lost some of that car count. And
They did.
And you said a little bit that was almost part of the plan, though, because you had a daughter going off to college.
Yeah. Well, each year it cost you significantly more for what you had invested in the car.
Mm-hmm.
The rules would get changed. You know, right. I was one guy that said, no, leave them alone for 4 or 5 years. You got a pretty good thing going here. But the rules makers weren't upstate here. They were downstate. And the economic situation's a little different down there. So
Sure.
Whatever. We had to deal with it. So my plan was a couple of more years of this. And to tell you how much it changed in 4 years, 95 I won the thing. And I kept the same $2,200 budget. That's all I spent for the year. Wouldn't have spent more no matter what happened.
Right.
That was it. I was a guy of principle here. Won it in 95, 96, same car, finished second in points. Last night at Rolling Wheels, got booted out in the weeds by somebody from wherever. Otherwise, all we had to do was finish 22nd. We would have won it.
Wow.
The big thing, but we got booted, so that was the end of that. Finished 24th. In 97, I finished 7th. In 98, I finished 8th in Mr. Dirt points. So for spending the same amount of money in those 4 years, I went from 1st to 8th in the tour.
Right.
You know, between 6 or 7 tracks. You know, between here to Lebanon Valley to Middletown, Accord, Fonda, Can-Am. So the price of doing business was up. So made up our mind. That was it. I had a daughter that was a senior in high school. I knew there was college and ultimately a wedding after that. So I said, you know, that takes precedent over the race car. So we kind of hung it up.
So you got out of it for 16 years, and now here you are looking at making another big change, jumping into the late model. And when you jump into the late model, you've got other things that come with that, and that $2,200 budget is got to be about
memory.
8 times that now, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, probably. But all the other things that I talked about, you know, back in 96, 97, that I had into the future, my daughter, that worked out well. She got her college, you know, she's married, got a child, good job. My wife.
It wasn't all peaches and cream there. She made a huge mistake and married a go-kart driver.
Yeah, well, I converted him. We got rid of the go-karts, and he's driving a sportsman car now. So, he's got more protection around him. He's got a family he's got to look after.
That's
You know,
right.
He can't afford to be in traction for a month, getting his legs straightened up. But my wife, she's really been a champion there. She's allowed me to do this. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't even be here. We wouldn't be talking about this. But so she's really been in my favor and let me do my thing. You know, this is my poison. This is my drug of choice. So,
is it more fun now? Is there less pressure now than there was when you're out there on the tour and you were running for the Mr. Dirt titles and you're trying to be diligent to your budget and maintain that? Is the fire the same?
No. I think it is.
You think it is?
In my mind, but it's not.
Okay.
I mean, physically,
all right.
It's more difficult. You know,
I can see
I
that.
require a little more sleep.
Right.
Haven't got the stamina. You know, I'll be 70 in a couple of months here, so you're not the same as when you're 45.
Sure.
no matter what you might think. So, but the mind is a wonderful thing because you can still demand it to do certain things, and you can do them fairly well.
Yeah.
You know, if you're used to doing something, that'll continue. It's like riding a bike.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, you never forget. It just takes a little while to get comfortable again. I guess that's the biggest thing is the comfort. But the pressure, I never felt pressure way back then. I got in the car, and when I shut the window nut and started the car, none of that stuff mattered, ever entered my mind. I just had one thing in mind, get to the front.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to finish. You got to keep it in one piece.
Right.
So I always played on the conservative side a little bit. Wasn't a get-even guy too much. You know, guys that try to rough you up. But I waited. I was patient. It might take me 2 months or 6 months or next year, but I never forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Karma's a wonderful thing. It always worked out, but not immediately. Got to win. That's why you're there. But this is going to be a different challenge, but the desire to win is still there, still the same.
Mm-hmm.
And but I just want to do it for my car owners.
Mm-hmm.
They've been so good to me.
Sure.
You know, why would you give some 60-something-year-old guy out of the clear blue, hey, you want to go race? It's like, where were you 20 years ago? But nobody even wanted to talk to me back then because of my age.
Right.
So that just probably grounded just a little bit more when I got in the car.
Right.
That was in the back of my mind somewhere. It's okay. We'll show you, you know.
Right.
So, and now it's more fun. Really, really, really more fun.
So we're just looking at this jump of budget. You're honestly looking at anywhere from probably 15 to 18,000 to do this, right?
Realistically, yeah.
Yeah.
But we could do it for a lot less.
Well,
but still, we haven't got. You know, even when we sell the stuff that we've got, we're not going to come close. We're gonna require some more money.
Right. You're gonna have some help.
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean,
do a division that you know is going to be more affordable, where you still like a sportsman car. Why not tour with the sportsman guys? So you've got a cheaper motor, you've got more readily available parts. You've got any number of different tracks that you want to go to, and there's a couple decent paying sportsman races. Why not go that route versus going to the late model?
Well, I sat in one of those cars, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. I tried one for a couple of months at Canandaigua. I won a couple of heat races.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Brownell, Matt Shepard's prior owner,
mm-hmm.
they had a couple of spare cars sitting around, and he let me use one. We put a small crate motor in it, and every week it was something. I did it all by myself. I didn't have any help.
Right.
Electronic issues for a couple of weeks before I could figure that out, and something else would happen, and just it's really difficult. I got frustrated. Plus, I wasn't real comfortable in the car.
Yeah.
We were okay. We had a few top 10s in the features, but, you know, there's a pretty stout field of cars at Canandaigua on a Saturday night. So getting the top 10 there is, you know, it's an accomplishment for me.
Right.
Plus a couple of heat race wins. But I wasn't comfortable sitting in the middle of the car up in the air. I'm a Cub Cadet mowing my lawn, I am, but I got so many miles over the road and so many years, it just felt unnatural.
Right.
I wasn't comfortable at all. So that's probably the biggest reason why we're staying with a left hand, sit in the seat kind of car, just like my road car. So
you were talking about how you got to win, you got to keep the wheels on it, you got to make sure that you finish so that you can be consistent. You chase after that stuff. That was evident last year. I mean, obviously you didn't hit the motor. You were able to sacrifice you're willing to sacrifice a series championship or a track championship, basically, because you wanted to protect the motor. Does that come with a particular degree of maturity? If we had seen the same situation in 1991, would you have been harder on the motor that night, or would you have been lifting the same way?
No, I probably would have done the same thing, because back then I was the sole proprietor,
mm-hmm.
and I still think like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little more subtle, but that's still in the back of my mind. And the guy that owns the car, Bill, says, go for it. Well, I do, but something always stops me, maybe, if it's a situation that doesn't feel right. Not now. 10 seconds from now at the other end of the track, maybe we'll give it a shot. But I don't know. I got these little instincts built in. And it's the same way with the motor. If I broke it, I had to fix it. So if I broke it back in August, Bill was going to have to fix it. And if you put a hole in them, it takes a lot of money.
Right.
Plus a lot of patches.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't put a hole in the thing, a little easier.
Right.
So, but we sacrificed. I didn't want to. I had to think a couple of split seconds, but it just as soon as I saw the oil pressure gauge on 0, there was no doubt in my mind.
Right.
So, it's a non-issue as far as I'm concerned. I would do that with anybody's car, even whether I own it or someone else owns it. It's just the way I am, and people may not like. They'd say, "Well, go for it," but I can't. So,
So basically, if there's anybody out there that wants to get involved with a late model, they know for sure that they can bet better odds that the car's going to be there running at the finish.
well,
Yes.
that's what we try to do. We, yeah, you got to. Well, someone had that old expression 50 or 80 years ago
Which one?
about finishing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
To finish first, you first have to finish, or something that is paraphrasing it, but something to that effect. So a lot of things go through your mind other than that little phrase, but it all comes back to that. My old line years ago was, if I could hit the scale and drive it in the trailer, it's a good night. So hitting the scale is usually top 5.
Well,
Guys go to the scale. If you can put it in the trailer without a tow truck,
what was that streak that you had? I mean, you're still, like you said, you're a guy that was more apt to use used or still good parts versus buying something that was new. And in the mid 90s, you had a string of like 3 years or something crazy where you didn't have to replace anything on the front end.
Yeah, it was almost 3 years. 95, the year that I won the Mr. Dirt. I started the year before that.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 95, I had Friday night, Saturday night, both track championships. I won 25 features at the both tracks, plus the big one. And we never bent a tie rod, never bent a wheel or a flat tire. But the mechanical stuff is, that gets looked at every week.
Mm-hmm.
If something is a little bit, if you got something that's supposed to be nice and free and it's not, there's a bind, it's got to go. But we replace damaged parts with good used parts.
Mm-hmm.
From where I sit, nothing wrong with that. You got to kind of look out for the checkbook there, best you can. But there's a lot of good used parts around.
Right.
So we used to get good used things, which were better than our damaged things, and it was half the price of a brand new piece. Still got the job done. So, but when you look at it every single week, your odds are pretty good. But the old saying, "You win the race in the garage before you get there," proved to be true with me for a couple of years.
Well, I mean, you had a maintenance program that probably wasn't like a lot of what the other street stock and pro stock guys were doing at that time. You were treating it just like the guys with the more expensive entries, say the modifieds or the sprint cars. There was a schedule that, Monday we did this, and then Tuesday we did this, and Wednesday the whole maintenance program was maintained. And when you go through stuff like that, you're going to find the almost broken part before it breaks.
Usually,
at the track.
Usually a cut if you know what you're looking for.
And you can that stems that tide, helps that.
Certainly, because the finishing position is everything. That's the reason you go. Of course, you go to win. At 10 o'clock, they only talk to one guy. The other 23 go home. So that was kind of always my mission, is to be that one guy.
Right.
Might not have a lot of good things to say some nights, or a lot of bad things to say some nights, but the mission was to be that one person they talk to, not one of the 23 that has to go home. Gets kind of grumpy after a while,
You made mention of Fulton, and you made mention of Brewerton, and you talked about Canandaigua, and you've had the chance to run all over the place.
Yes.
What's your favorite track? Uh-oh.
No. Paradise, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Little quarter-mile motorcycle track. They ran a few years there in the mid-'90s. I never knew what lap it was for the most part. You get a track like that with 20-some cars on it, you haven't got time to think, daydream. Luckily, if you can see the flagger,
Right.
2 and 3 wide. It was an excellent racetrack. Even though Canandaigua people think that's my favorite, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's convenient. It's 12 miles from my house. So when gas was $2 or $3 a gallon, makes a difference.
Sure.
Plus
Makes
you're
sense.
home by 11 o'clock instead of 1 or 2 in the morning. There's a lot of tracks I liked. I can't recall that I've ever been to a track that maybe downstate.
Where?
They're tough. Middletown,
Yeah.
Fonda. First of all, they race on different tires. The surface is different. They race on hard tires.
Mm-hmm.
And we're used to running on soft tires that last a month and a half, 2 months. They're 2 weeks on a tire if they're lucky.
Right.
And the setup of the car has to be different.
Sure.
So it was really hard to go there and be fast. I was top 10 when I went there. But you got to do it on a steady basis to really figure it out. But they would struggle just about as much when they came up here. Those guys, they get on the softer tires and they would struggle. So it's kind of a wash.
Who is it that you miss racing against? I mean, I got to believe that you're not running into a lot of the guys that you used to lock horns with in the 90s.
No.
In terms of the track, I mean.
Yeah, Top Gun, Les White, he was an old buddy of mine. I've known him since the 60s. We used to work together, actually. 63, 64. Yeah, we were in high school. Summer job, we had at the same place.
Right.
So I've known him that long. And but I missed the last 15, 18 years. I missed the guys through the late 90s and all through the 2000s, the Jip Ortez, those kind of guys that were really, really fast. And Tommy Barron continued on. He's a good friend of mine. He's coming out of retirement.
Is he?
He is. He's another one. I guess he thought, well, if I can do it, he can do it. So.
Right.
But I'm not sure if he's going to go asphalt racing or he's going dirt racing. He's done both. Before he came to dirt back in the mid-'90s, he was an asphalt racer. He lives about 2 miles from Spencer Speedway, so I can't blame him for that. But, yeah, he ended up with a car, so they're working on it now.
So he's going with the late model as well?
No, I don't know. If he goes asphalt racing, it'll be a super stock, street stock kind of car. This late model thing, I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But we want to try it. Because these cars are quite a bit different from a conventional street stock.
Well, you said you always had that drive. I mean, we've seen, Walt Mitchell from right here in Waterloo drove late models in that version of late models for a long time and had a ton of success in that, which that eventually evolved, and you can find some kinship between the car that you're looking at and what they were running way back then. And eventually he went on and he found some success in the modifieds.
Oh, in this modified, sure, yeah.
You're moving from the street stocks into the late models. Is it to make that transition now in the pro stocks? Is
this
that
late in
easier?
life?
Is it an easy? Well, not that. That's a fair question. So go ahead and chat about that. For sure. But is it an easier transition to go from the street stock to the late model versus going from what they were way back when the late model was into a modified? I mean, in your opinion, you've been around. You've been a lot of different races, and you've seen a lot of different drivers come up through.
This might be difficult.
Yeah.
Because the way the car functions
Mm-hmm.
is totally different than a conventional street stock with 2 coil springs in the rear or 2 leaf springs in the rear. The rear end moves around in these cars,
Yes,
similar
it
to
does.
what the modifieds do. When you accelerate, one side of that rear end is fixed and the other side moves forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that creates a whole dynamic that's totally different. So
When you were a kid, you were talking about wanting to get into racing and stuff like that. You were able to scratch that to an extent with success for a good 10-year stretch, and then you came back to it. Mm-hmm. Was there still a desire to move up the ranks, to get further up, to go to a higher level, whatever it may be?
No, I didn't do that.
No?
That wasn't a motivating factor.
I mean, you talked about your budget was $2,200. It kind of keeps you fixed in a particular division
It
no
does.
matter what.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I would have, back then, I was mid-40s, on up into my early 50s before I quit. But I had thoughts of moving up, but it was a money issue. I wasn't going to mortgage my family life for that. And I had very little help. I had, Giuliano's Auto Parts. But those cars, of course, street stocks, 90% of that car came from a used car lot. Right.
Came from a car.
And you move into a different
shop.
division, there isn't one thing.
Right.
One bolt on that car that comes from there. So everything is over the counter, aftermarket. So that makes a big, big difference, budget-wise.
Sure.
Okay? Not that I didn't want to do it, but in my position, I didn't have a lot of help. Everybody kind of looked the other way. Well, all these other guys are in their 20s, teens. Mm-hmm. Here I am, old enough to be their father. Forget him, he's washed.
You said they're in their teens and
20s, yeah.
Now, I'm old enough to be their grandfather.
Yeah, well, they're middle-aged now, but I'm still old as their father. Or grandfather, some of them.
There's got to be some young guys in that division.
Yeah, there is. There's guys in their early 20s. I got kids in their 30s and 40s.
Right.
And I got a grandson that's 21 years old. So it makes it kind of fun when they're talking to you at 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
And everybody else has to go home.
After you were interviewed last.
That's right. Yeah, so that's a little motivating thing, too. Makes me smile all week. But, at this point in my life, this is my last thing that I'll probably be able to do physically.
Right.
It's my bucket list,
Here we go, bucket list. Mike is so big on the bucket list. He talks so much about it. He's got to get this track on his bucket. Mike, you're not even 35 yet. Calm down.
No, my family's been pretty good to me with the bucket list. Anything that I pretty much wanted to do within reason.
Uh-huh.
As long as I could work Monday morning, carry on a normal family life, I was allowed to do it without much blowback. So for that, I'm grateful. I really am. Not all of my friends have been able to do that. So they've stuck with me. So now it's just, this is my game of golf. Guys want me to play golf. Why should I? I enjoy this more. They hit it. They go with a dozen balls and they hit 4 of them into the lake, and they're more angry than I am if I have a flat tire during a race.
Mm-hmm. I can see.
It bothers them for 3 days, 4 days. And, I had a flat tire. We load the thing up and get out of there. Forget about it. Next week's a new show.
For all of our friends that are keeping score, you mentioned friends. We got our friends over on the crash course on Monday nights. That you have not turned a blind eye to Demolition Derby.
No.
Coming up with a second place finish, and you said it was a 65 Chevy.
Yeah.
Back in like the mid-'70s?
Yeah, it was a 65 Biscayne. It was my driver until I bought something else, and it just sat there. So I said, I might as well wreck it and try to win some money.
Right.
And I got a second place in the Derby.
So
but
hopefully some of our Derby buddies were tuning in tonight because they're not going to believe that.
I'd do it again if I was 40 years younger.
Yeah, you don't want to do it now?
No, the body couldn't take it now.
It's a different world, just like the racing world is.
Yeah. Well, but the more things change, the more they don't.
True.
Sometimes.
True.
The principle's still the same.
Yes.
It's just a little more violent. But they got better safety equipment, at least for a stock car. For that, I'm grateful, compared to what we had 20 years ago even.
Yeah.
I've got the best suit I can get. Shoes, gloves, new helmet, fresh air in there. So, compared to 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we are fortunate. We really are.
How, tell me a little bit about your car owner. Billy Twist from right here in Waterloo.
He's a heck of a mechanic.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. Yeah. Unfortunately, with this late model thing that we want to do, the motors are sealed from the factory. General Motors seals them. You can't touch them. If you touch them, you're disqualified.
Right.
So, but he built the motors that we raced with the last few years, and he did a heck of a job. On a real small budget. Excellent mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I both learned about this car because it's a little bit different, the one we raced this year, than anything we ever had. So it was both a learning process, and it should carry over into this other style of car we're talking about, the late model car.
Mm-hmm.
And no, but he's been whatever he thought I needed, we got. But like I say, I just bare essentials. There's a lot of fancy stuff and a lot of chrome. We're not into that too much. I'd get a lot of questions over the years. When am I going to change the paint, chrome this, do that? But I'd always offer them to drop a check off, whatever color they liked. We'd accommodate them, but we needed to take care of the important stuff first, and that pretty much got done, and that was the end of the. So
who else helps make the car get to the track? I mean, I got to believe that you got a bunch of people that are going to be coming with you making this transition to help with the car last year.
Well, hopefully, yeah. We got the Q&A tax preparation people in Waterloo,
mm-hmm.
and Giuliano's, of course. There's still a few things on the street stock that we had, our pro stock, that come from there. The front end suspension materials, the rear end. Most of the people are running Ford, Ford truck or rear ends, so they're a popular item. But Giuliano, Jim Schuyler from Himrod,
right,
the Dundee master. Advice.
I bet.
Advice costs money sometimes. I was fortunate enough to get it for free. And Jack and John's Barbershop. He's a race fan. He's a hot rodder. Got a nice street rod.
Mm-hmm.
So he likes to see the thing go. And, of course, Community Car Care. That's the garage right there in East Main and Waterloo. That's kind of the heartbeat of the operation.
It's where the magic happens.
Yeah. And he's got a few guys that hang around the garage that pitch in. Grateful for that. But it's just a lot of hard work by a lot of people. I guess a lot of small pieces made one big piece. Some people get one big piece. Other people have to build it a different way. So that's the way that Bill knew best, you know. And
as long as it gets the same end result, right?
that's correct. And no matter what kind of car, even if we had an open wheel type of modified car, you're still going to have the same mechanical issues. The part might look different, but it's going to perform the same operation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything needs maintenance. Everything takes time, a lot of time. So that's the biggest thing. But it's nice. It's nice to have a bunch of people around that still appreciate horsepower.
Right.
You know, and something that makes a little bit of noise. And I know to a lot of people that's not a good thing, but there's a lot of things that other people do that irritate me, so we'll just leave it at that. Like they say.
Where's the season going to start at this point? You're looking at going up to Fulton or Brewerton early on?
No, probably not. It may be a while before we get connected to the ground here. It may, you know, usually they start late April. We may not be ready.
Right.
You know, we got to get all our ducks in a row here. More than likely, Canandaigua is where we'd start, just because we're familiar.
Is anything going to translate from the notes that you've already got at this point in the event?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. You know, setup of the car.
Yeah.
These late model style cars are quite a bit lighter than what we're used to, but still percentages are numbers. They have to be close.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for the car to get around. So doesn't matter what you start out with the total weight. You know, there's still a percentage involved. So, you know, we can do the math, get it close. And then the other thing is just me, I guess. You know, I've got to be able to understand, read the car.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing we see on Sundays at NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
So we come in, and then it's just a meeting of the minds and make some adjustments and hope for the best. But maybe experience probably is a big advantage, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
seat time. It's all seat time.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Did you ever imagine at 70 years old you'd be concerned about seat time?
No, matter of fact. I thought I'd be lucky enough if I could take my cane and get myself to the grandstand.
Right.
You know, pay my $12 and have a beer and, you know, swat away the dust and enjoy a good race.
Different world now.
Yeah, it is. Price of the machinery. But still, it's watching, you know, all of the cars, and it takes the whole program, the whole big picture to pull it off. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, years ago, you can go back 20, 30, 40 years, there was always 2 or 3 guys in the modifieds, for instance. You know, you get the Barefoot Bob, Jack Johnson. Mm-hmm. You know, or if you're an asphalt guy, Richie Evans, Jerry Cook. After a while, I'd always tell my friends, I wouldn't pay $1 and walk across the street to watch 3 or 4 of the top guys that are in the top every single week race. Mm-hmm. That's what I like about racing up here versus down south. I get down there once or twice a year to watch races, and they do time trials. Fast guys start up front. I'll stay home. You know, the handicapping makes it fun. They got to start 15th, 16th, way back in the middle, and they got to work their way up through, and they've got to keep the car in one piece. You know, you just can't be shoving guys out of the way. So that's where the talent and the skill comes in. And some nights, you know, some of the guys that are
talents and skill, how much of that's also patience, especially with handicapping?
You know, patience is a big thing.
Yeah.
Not everyone has it. In the right doses, let's put it that way.
And it's not something you can buy at a pro shop either.
No. Things happen in the car, you know, in a split second at 100 miles an hour, and you know, can you control your, you know, your focus and not let it get in the way? But but it takes the whole field. It takes all 20, 25 guys to make it fun, you know, for the people in the grandstands. And if they weren't there, we wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. You know, wouldn't be a race. Be the same with the demo derby. Probably more often than not, you'd have a couple of derbies with no fans, but after a while, what's the point? You know,
right?
So it takes the whole package. Keep the fans happy, and you know, takes a bunch of guys. No matter the equipment, doesn't matter what class. You know, some nights, not only our class, but I've been to other races over the years. Just watch races. Some nights the street stocks in the full fender class, the cars with bodies on them, conventional looking bodies for the most part, was the best racing. Mm-hmm. because they were so restricted. The motors were pretty equal. Talent was there. It's nice to see a race when two or three guys are within 100 feet of each other at the end, as opposed to somebody a half a lap ahead. It gets kind of dull after a while. But everybody's in it for a different reason.
They are.
So I just got my own little agenda and just trying to do this for another year or two if my body will cooperate. Get some health issues, so if we can overcome them and stay on top of them, we should be able to do it another year or two.
Well, it's remarkable to see you tackling the number of different cars that you've done, and to come back to racing after such a long time, perform well, and now to try and tackle the late model. It's good to see. I mean, I'm excited about it.
I'm looking forward to it for sure.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see, and definitely coming in with that same mindset. I mean, like you said, nothing's really changed that much other than a couple calendar squares.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, just that's like people, though. They were the same. Our parents, our grandparents. People are still people. The only thing that's changed is the color of your hair, the clothes you wear, and the kind of car you drive. So you got all your different sorts, and that's it. Just nothing's going to change in the near future on that. Takes all.
Definitely keep in touch through the course of the off season. Let us know how things are going in terms of getting the car together. How can people get a hold of you if they want to get their name on the side of the late model?
Probably the easiest way is Bill Twist.
Yeah.
Community Car Care. Little garage right on the east end of Waterloo, near in the hospital. That big old sun-drenched red trailer right out by the road with a big number 30 on the back of it. Swing in there, and if you mention race car, somebody's ears are going to stand at attention.
Right.
Any one or two or three different people, but that would be the easiest way.
That cell number the best? That cell number? Yeah, the cell number is 315-651-8122, 315-651-8122 if you want to get a hold of Bill Twist over there at the shop. Steve, I mean, this has been something that I've been looking forward to. I know doing this kind of stuff isn't exactly what you get excited about. You'd rather be sitting behind the wheel of a race car than sitting behind the wheel of a microphone, but it's something that I know Bill and I have talked about this a couple times.
Well, this is all necessary, though. It's part of the package, isn't it? I think
it is. So you're willing to go out there and shake hands and kiss babies at somebody's facility if they want to park the car outside for a meet and greet, right?
Sure. I got a family. We shake hands and kiss babies all the time. Well, more than happy to, but actually, it's kind of neat here. I'm the real senior guy here, but the car owners and most of the guys that help, they're all over 50, over 50, some of them. So we all, and that's when this AARP thing kicks in, right?
Right.
So we're kind of the seniors of the thing here, but we don't feel we're running last either.
That's good.
We can give it a good effort, and we can run to the best of them.
We sure do.
Believe. But you got to think positive. That's all. Yeah, no negative thoughts around our car.
Power of positive thought, right?
That's right. We don't get too excited when bad things happen. We try to keep an even keel because bad things can happen when, and we don't want to get involved in any of that. Never have. We're never going. We're not going to change now. We are who we are. We're just trying to have old people trying to have some fun before it's all over. And I know a lot of guys that I've raced with over the years. They just could not make it fun.
Yeah.
And they just had a miserable week. And this whole thing is supposed to be fun, no matter what level you're at. I think, that's the way we approach it.
It's supposed to be a hobby.
So anybody that wants to have some fun could hang around, help out without being insulted. We treat everybody well.
Very good.
But, we've enjoyed it. So we're going to try it another year. We think we can hold our own.
I'm looking forward to it, and I definitely wish you the best, man. Wish you the best of luck with it. I'm glad you guys could make it in and hang out with us here for a little while on the 183rd episode of the 31st lap right here on Finger Lakes 1. Appreciate everybody who jumped over from the live basketball broadcast. We're going to be getting out of here. You'll be able to catch up with them. They went live about a half hour ago or so make sure you stay right here with us on fingerlakes1.tv. You can catch Jim Sinacropi from the basketball games with more of that live high school hoops action. That is going to do it for us here on the 31st lap. Again, we appreciate everybody hanging out with us, and we'll see you right back here again next week.